Textiles is one area where the Vikings keep getting misrepresented. Just notice it the next time you see Vikings in a movie or a TV series. Their clothes very often look like something that's been cobbled together on short notice by somebody sleep deprived and possibly also drunk. So you'll see things like seams with this far between the stitches and that sort of thing. And this doesn't really fit with the archaeology, because what little we have of textile finds from the Viking Age show really good craftsmanship. And when you live in Norway, it has a tendency to be a little bit chilly in the winters, so proper clothes is something you just have to have. The Vikings used mostly wool for warmth and linen for comfort, but their techniques were completely different than they are today. Knitting with two knitting cords doesn't come to Scandinavia until the late 1400s. So before that, they used a technique called needle binding. And with needle binding, you work with one needle and you make an extended spiral of knots. So making something with needle binding takes longer than knitting it, and it also uses up more thread, but you also get a better product. Because every one of these knots is completed. It's not a loop like in knitting. So if you get a hole in it, it won't start to unravel like a knitted finger. There will just be a hole in it that you can fix with a couple of stitches when you have the time. Also, people in the Viking Age with a lot of money or a lot of knowledge could be quite colorful. All of these colors you can make with more or less local plant coloring. Perhaps the simplest color to make is yellow. Because if you boil wool with practically any green plant, you will get a yellow color. Brown is also easy to make, because if you boil wool with nutshells, it turns brown. But if you want red or blue, that's a little bit more tricky. For a red, the Vikings used madder root. And madder root doesn't grow naturally in Norway, so you have to import it. And in addition, the process is temperature sensitive. So if it gets a little bit too hot, it turns brown instead. But if you take it out at exactly the right temperature, 55 degrees centigrade, you get this nice red color. And then you also have to remember that the thermometer in the Viking Age looked like this. For blue, the Vikings used woad. And woad grows naturally in Norway, so that's not a problem. The problem is that you also have to use ammonia to get the pigment out of the woad plant. And the Vikings got ammonia from urine. Does everybody here know what urine is? I can usually tell from children's facial expression if they know what it is or not. Because if they don't know what it is, they just look bored. And when they do know what it is, they always get this face. I think you might know. I'm not sure about those two. But just in case some of the adults don't know, urine is pee. So you have a big pot of pee, you throw in some bowl, you leave it out in the sun for 2 to 3 weeks until it smells really, really bad, and now you can add the wool. And again, you have to heat it up very carefully, because if it gets too hot, it turns green instead. But if you take it out at exactly the right temperature, 70 degrees centigrade, it is still green when it's in the pot, but as soon as you take it out, it will react with oxygen in the air and turn blue. And this will kind of look like magic to the people watching. This is also one of the things that really impresses me with the people of the Viking Age. Because they don't know anything about the chemistry and the physics that goes into this. Everything they know because of experimentation. And I have to say, I wonder, how many pots of weird ingredients do you have to boil before you come up with this? The woman who is normally here is a big proponent of the sabotage theory. She thinks they were just trying to make green, but then somebody on a neighboring farm who didn't like them very much came over and gave a contribution to their coloring project. And for all I know, that might very well be true, because the alternative sounds way too scientific for the Viking Age. Imagine a bunch of Viking scientists standing around a boiling pot, and then one of them goes, okay, we tried fresh water, we tried salt water, we tried different types of oil, and we tried with milk. Nothing works. Does anybody have a suggestion? And then from the back row, have you tried with urine? I can't really envision that for the Viking Age. Then we can move on to the weapons, and feel free to ask questions.